Well, by now you know what that sound means. It's time for Cuyahoga's Most Wanted. Every week we feature 3 fugitives who could be out there on our street right now. That means there's reward money up for grabs. We partner every week with Crime Stoppers of Cuyahoga County, as well as the Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Department. Detective Red Dyer, how are you today?
Oh, doing well, Dan. Just trying to stay warm.
There you go. Spring will be here before we know it, I think. We'll see about that. 3 more fugitives, 3 serious cases. And Red, you like to explain to people why we have this partnership and why it works.
Well, Dan, it's important that we get the community involved with law enforcement. We like to build that trust with the community. We like to give them the opportunity to help clean up their streets as well. And there is a monetary reward, as we'll get into later.
I mean, these are people who could be living on your street. They could be putting your family in danger. Some of these fugitives are facing serious violent crimes, and you think maybe you have a family member that bumps into one of them the wrong way or gets into an argument. How long before that escalates into yet another serious crime? With that said, let's get to our first case here, our first fugitive, Demetrian Gross. What do we know?
Well, Dan, Demetrian Gross may be going by the name Julius Gross. We'll get into that in one moment. Mr. Gross is actually wanted by the Sheriff's Department and is also on the LAM from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, also known as the ATF, for being in possession of a weapon that had been reported stolen. He has tried to elude police by using that separate alias. Due to his violent criminal history, he's prohibited from possessing firearms. For instance, Dan, in 2002, he pled guilty to felonious assault with firearm specifications, in which he served a prison sentence at the Lorraine Correctional Institution. He has a history of trafficking drugs as well. In 2015, he pled guilty to trafficking, where reports state that he offered to sell 90 oxycodone pills to an undercover detective. Not a good decision. Mr. Gross failed to appear for his arraignment on these charges, and a warrant was issued for his arrest in September of 2021. He's approximately 6 foot and 189 pounds and was last known to be staying in the 1100 block of East 79th Street in Cleveland.
Aliases don't always work. Somebody recognizes your face. They see this segment, and if you're watching this on social media, we know the power of sharing videos. It's a quick click of the button share. You may not know these individuals, but somebody, one of your friends, or somebody in your circle may know them. And again, it's about cleaning up our streets, making Cuyahoga County just a little bit safer. The next case, Roosevelt Wallace Jr. I want people to pay attention to the size of this man. I'm not sure how he's evaded capture for so long, because this is a very big man. Let's get to the case of Roosevelt Wallace Jr.
Well, Dan, Mr. Wallace Jr. is wanted for a felonious assault and robbery case where the indictment state that he assaulted the victim with a pipe, so not always firearms. He's also considered a repeat violent offender with the Sheriff's Department due to a 2007 guilty plea to aggravated robbery, kidnapping, and assault. So very scary stuff, Dan. He was put on a GPS as condition of his bond in this case. Unfortunately, on March 6th, he cut his GPS monitor off and fled. And as you know, Dan, people who cut off those GPS monitors do not want to be found. And our GPS unit takes the safety of the victims of these crimes and locating these individuals very seriously. Crime Stoppers, as well as the Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Department and our electronic monitoring unit, are looking for any information that leads to his arrest. He's approximately 6'8" and 350 pounds, so should not be too hard to spot, and was last known to be staying in the 2700 block of Washington Ave in the city of Cleveland.
6'8". I'm 6'4", and 6'8" is huge. 6'8", 350 pounds. That is a very large man, just size-wise. So like you said, should be easy to spot. Let's get to our third and final fugitive. Red, I went through and counted up. He's wanted by 6 different agencies. He's our headliner this week. What do we know about Colin Nash?
Yes, Dan, quite a few warrants, as we'll get into. Mr. Nash actually has 3 warrants alone with the Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Department. 2 of these cases have charges of domestic violence. Those are all very scary situations, especially for police officers to walk into, as emotions are usually high. Mr. Nash has a history of domestic violence with the Sheriff's Department. In December of 2022, he pled guilty to domestic violence as well as violating a protection order. According to reports on September of 2022, he headbutted the victim, who was the protected party of the protection order. Among other charges listed, he's also wanted in another domestic violence case for allegedly stealing the victim's vehicle. Mr. Nash also has warrants with the Pickaway County Sheriff's Department for driving under suspension, Berea Police for aggravated menacing, Strongsville Police for criminal damaging, as well as Lorain and Wayne County Sheriff's Offices for domestic violence. He can be identified by the neck tattoos of what appear to be Asian symbols, as you see in the pictures there. He is also not a small man. He is approximately 6'1" and 245 pounds, and was last known to be staying in the Craigmere Drive area in the city of Middleburg Heights.
Can't imagine being on the run when you're wanted in 6 different agencies, wanted by 6 different agencies. You have to be constantly looking over your shoulder. Somebody knows where Mr. Colin Nash is. And when your charges are domestic violence, that's not somebody we need in our community, not somebody that's making our community a better place to live. Red, people get worried when they think about, oh, I know where Mr. Nash is, I know where Colin is, I know where he works, he gets paid under the table, so he's not in the system. But I don't want my name to go into some sort of court record. I don't want the police saying, hey, Colin, we caught you because this person made the call on you. Why is that not a concern, and why does that make this partnership with Crime Stoppers such a good tool?
Well, Dan, that's not a concern because we don't have caller ID, we don't record phone calls, we don't take down your name or any identifying information. In fact, every contact you have through us is referenced through an anonymous tip number that we provide.
Yeah, and it's that tip number that can get you the reward money. You call back in 45 days later, give them that tip number, find out if it was your tip that led to the talented warrant unit with the Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Department to go out there and find that individual. It can be something as easy as, I know the bar they hang out at. I know who's hiding that person. He stays with his grandparents, or he stays with his parents, or whatever the case is. You can get a reward up to $5,000. And Red, when we start talking about that reward money, you like to remind people something?
That crime doesn't pay, but Crime Stoppers does.
Crime Stoppers absolutely does. It's a very simple phone call, 216-252-7463. If you need to remember it later, it's 216-25-CRIME. 216-25-CRIME or 216-252-7463. Red, that's going to wrap it up for us this week. Another 3 individuals we need off our street and in front of a judge. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. My pleasure.
All right, take care, Red Dyer. We're going to wrap this up. We have an 11 o'clock news coming up on CW43. I'll be anchoring that. A lot of our newscasts being preempted today by March Madness, a little NCAA basketball, which starts up today. A lot of eyes will be on those games all across the country. If we have any other breaking news, though, it'll be right here on our digital platforms throughout the day, news and weather. Until then, I'm Dan DeRosa with 19 News. Have a great afternoon.
19 News is everywhere.